Low stakes, mistakes. Anyone else raised to be a perfectionist? Not overtly, not with any transparency or support, not with structure or accountability, certainly not with mentorship, but with censure, criticism, and uncomfortable consequences if I didn't get it right, in their opinion, the first time or the first few times they considered enough times that I should, quote unquote, know better by now. Anyone else get something like that when growing up? Or maybe later when starting a job or getting into higher education or more specialized training? If I'm not taught with compassion and given resources, but I'm also not allowed to fail, how can I help myself? Let's talk about how play can help with that. Hi, this is Sanctuary of Play, a virtual church with the joyful mission that play is a sacred gift and an innate part of our natures which should be celebrated. We feel play is a basic need like sleep, food and water, shelter and community, and like those practices, play is good for us, has a purpose, and can be expressed in many ways. We're going to talk about play and encourage play in our lives. Back to today's topic about how play can help with not being allowed to make mistakes and the external demand for instant perfection. Transferable skills help. There's a lot that you can learn away from the high stake place you're not allowed to make a mistake. There's a parable level saying, like right up there with really official things, that gets traded around in Western philosophy and mysticism, that's translated into ye old schmanciful English as know thyself. This was written above the doorway of the Apollo Oracle of Delphi temple. Anyhow, a place and the birthplace of Western philosophy that was very well regarded. And there are lots and lots of ways to interpret know thyself. But one of the ways that dovetails into the transferable skills idea is that we all have our own unique physiologies and life experiences. I'm short. My partner is tall. That's going to change how we move through the world. They can hear better than I can. I can differentiate color better than they can. I was given more formal schooling that makes banging out a chat like this no big deal. I threw this one together in an hour or two, and it might not be the best I've done, but it isn't the worst I've done. But this would be almost impossible for my partner to do. However, they were schooled in a social justice and consensus concept school, and they're much better at small talk and active listening than I am, even though they're much more introverted. We've been taught different things, we've experienced different things, and we've learned different things. We have different tools. Learning how to learn is a skill. Learning how to learn from failure is a separate skill. Learning how to apply what you know to something that is different than how you learned it is a skill. So it might not be obvious that you can mess up in one place, learn about yourself in that place, learn how you deal with things in that place, and then take what you've learned about yourself and how things happen to something else. For example, being able to wind sprints, really fast sprints back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Being good at that is a practice and a skill, which is different, even though it's still running, from long distance running. Long distance running is a skill. These two skills won't be possible for all people for a variety of reasons. But whatever you can do in a way that you can get better at it. And you can do in a way that you can know yourself so that you can take your better in that spot and move it over to a spot where you have nothing, so you at least aren't starting from zero. I would not be able to run a marathon today. I would fail badly. But if I had tried to run a marathon when I was younger, for example, just after my dance tour ended, I could totally have gotten away with it. I had the strength and endurance. I did not know. I did do warm-ups and cool-downs, so I wouldn't have hurt myself that way. But what I did not know was anything about carb loading, electrolytes, and hydration, because you're not allowed to do drinks on when you're on stage doing tap dancing. Not really a thing to be able to suck down some hydrogel at that point. Clothing chafing. I was in costumes. I wasn't allowed to say what I wanted to wear. Interval pacing. I could not stop dancing to take a breather. That would not work. What works for my feet to be in athletic shoes? I was in character shoes. There was no choice. And a million other things where I could take some of my physical skills from the dancing over to being able to run a marathon, but I would still have lots and lots of spaces where I could still make mistakes. So how could I take those things that I didn't know and practice them other places so that if I got thrown into a marathon, I'd be okay the very first time? So, for example, there's a big difference between running shoes and basketball shoes. But if I was practicing basketball and had basketball shoes, at least I would learn, for example, the shape of my foot and what shoes are out there and what my stride is like, and a bunch of other things about materials of shoes and how I feel about different makes and models. So, for example, from fencing, I know that I have a huge preference for a very thin sole. And it's extremely difficult for me to be out there on things with a more cushioned sole just because it feels like I can't feel the ground and I start tripping. So that's knowing myself, coming up against what is available as far as tools. Or, for example, when it comes to cloth and chafing, maybe I have a hot yoga practice and I have become aware of how clothes cling and move on me when I'm extremely sweaty and what it's like to have that still on my skin when I stop and be cold and things like that. I could choose to take up dog walking for extra income and learn a lot, not just about shoes that take a beating on the streets, but it'd be better for interval training, being in movement, stopping and starting, stopping and starting, and it would be an environment where I could eat snacks so I could learn what works for me or what would make me sick when I'm in motion. There are a lot of ways that I could play with the pieces of a marathon in a way that I could transfer over into the marathon if I wanted to do it. When I'm challenged with something, I fear I'm going to fail. Because I have practiced learning how to learn, and I know my strengths and weaknesses, then I can take the challenge apart into pieces and do an inventory of transferable skills that I already have and things that I don't have that I can play with first. I'm going to go with another example that's really, really over the top and over dramatic. This is, when I say low stakes mistakes, let me talk about an example in the past that is a high stake situation. A really high stake situation. During World War II, snipers were a thing. There was a very successful sniper whose name I'm going to mingle, but it was Simo Häyhä. Anyhow, he was a Finnish marksman. He was ridiculous and impressive, and y'all should go read up on him. One knack he had to be a good sniper is he used to keep snow in his mouth while sniping to make sure his breath didn't steam out visibly into the cold winter air so you could see his position. What he was doing, the sniping, was really a high stakes life or death. And I'm sure he had a lot of knacks to figure out how to make that better. In contrast, the Winter Olympics biathlon event is literally based in the same patrol skills that the snipers used. It is an event where you ski between platforms and stations and do shooting at the stations. And it's much lower stakes. I know it sounds funny to say that this game, in the pinnacle of competition that is the Olympics, that high level is lower stakes. But it's a place where missing a target just means you have a lower score, and it's frustrating. Hopefully no one dies. No one's expected to die. The sport is just playing. It's a lot safer to fail when you're playing. If I take my safety to fail and my breakdown of what I need to improve and my knowledge of what I can do, then I take my plan to play and I go make my low stakes mistakes. I revel in making mistakes. I make as many mistakes as I can. I aim for mistakes. I min-max for mistakes. Mistakes are the point. Aim for them. Revel in them. Play is where I can make my mistakes. Do I make a mistake with my clothing and chafe myself so I have to wear a bandage for a little while until my skin heals? Great. It didn't mess up anything important. Do I buy a board game with a timer so I get used to playing with a ticking clock that might help me be calmer in an in-person chess tournament I care about? Great. I'd much rather have little plastic pieces pop into my face over and over and over again as the alarm goes off after going tick, 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 then be distracted by the clock when I want to think. I can choose to parody and talk along with somebody who does a lot of voice acting videos at home and get really big with it and really dramatic with it to get more comfortable hearing my own voice and learning how I can sound. I might not even know that I can go really bright or guttural or any sort of thing. I can learn all that before, for example, I need to speak up at a Toastmasters meeting that's full of people from work who are going to get a first impression of me, and I'm worried about my reputation. When I'm playing, I'm more safe. I can make mistakes. Play is my sanctuary. Thank you for joining me today. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday.